Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and today we're going to be talking about ITV and specifically ITV's dramas because I've got to say guys, I mean, you know me, I'm a pretty big fan, a pretty big supporter of the BBC. I'm a supporter of all UK TV. I want UK TV to do well, I want it to thrive, I want it to achieve great things in an ever-changing landscape, but I think ITV, especially recently, I've got to concede that they might be the new kings of drama. And I'm not just talking about, you know, the fact that the dramas are good, they are, but I mean, they've had a slate of dramas recently, 2 that have aired and 1 that's being developed and will be coming out soon, that I think have not only been entertaining for people, but they've spoken to people, they've really got people invested, emotional, and it's led to real change. The first of these I'm talking about, of course, is Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, which aired in the early January of this year. Of course, as I'm sure many are aware, this covers the post office scandal that's been a long-running thing. This has been going on for decades. This isn't a new thing. But because of this drama, it's been back in the news and real change has actually happened. In fact, around the time I'm recording this, it was recently announced that all the sub-postmasters and sub-postmistresses who were wrongly accused in that scandal have now been cleared. Which is fantastic news, but let's be real, I think this has only really come about now because of the impact that Mr. Bates versus the Post Office had on the public. To elaborate a bit, I've got an article here from the BBC, which just talks about the show, its impact and other stuff as well. It talks about how, you know, there's been inquiries, there's been pushes over the last 25 years to try and get justice for those postmasters and mistresses who were affected. But it mentions after 25 years on from those first convictions for theft and fraud, it is the 4-part ITV drama Mr. Bates versus the Post Office that has renewed mass public interest in the scandal like never before. Watched by 9 million viewers so far, this was posted back in January. According to ITV's figures, the miniseries centres on the story of sub-postmaster Alan Bates, played by actor Toby Jones, who led and won a legal battle paving the way for dozens of convictions to be overturned. So, you know, some elements of the drama, you know, probably some scenes, obviously either heightened or adapted for, you know, because it is a drama at its very core. But the whole concept of the story, the message behind the story is very loud and clear, how hundreds of people were wrongly accused. Some were jailed, some were vilified, some sadly even took their own lives because of the, you know, the fallout effects from it. And now this drama, the first of its kind that's really shone a big light on this in a way never before, has led to real change. It says since the series began airing on New Year's Day, more than 100 new potential victims have contacted lawyers, some of whom were former sub-postmasters who were prosecuted by the Post Office. The government is under pressure to overturn the wrongful convictions, which it now has done. But it does make the point. It marks a long-awaited breakthrough for victims, but why now? And why in response to a TV show? Because I think that's partly what's got people angry. Like, the drama riled them up, you know, seeing the injustice done, but why is it now, 25 years on since those first convictions, that a drama on ITV has led to this? For the show's exec producer Patrick Spence, it proves the unique power drama can hold in forging human connection. He told BBC Radio 4, drama can go inside the homes of the sub-postmasters who so suffered and dramatised the pain that they went through. It can do something that a documentary and a newspaper article can't. They can bring to life the true emotional impact on the people who were victimised by the Post Office's abhorrent behaviour. And that's absolutely true. In drama, we forge human connections, whether the people we're watching it with, or even if it's just ourselves, you know, we forge that connection with what we're watching. It might make us really happy. It might make us really sad. And in a lot of cases with Mr. Bates, it made a lot of people very angry. The two mediums, rather than working in competition, often complement each other to form a lasting impact, says arts writer Fiona Sturgis. I think it's easy to look at the media as a separate entity when so often these types of dramas are inspired by stories painstakingly researched over years by journalists. But I also think TV dramas can bring a level of humanity and colour that print media can't always manage, largely due to the limits on space and reach. And that's true. You know, articles in print, it is up to the editors to decide how much space they want to dedicate to it, but it's often just like a page, a 2-page spread, whatever. And as I say, it's recently been announced that I believe all, if not nearly all, of those who were wrongly convicted, it's now been overturned. There's new legislation coming in. It's a big breakthrough. A quarter of a century in the making, by the way. 25 years. That's a long time, especially if you were one of the ones wrongly convicted. That is an abhorrently long time. But of course, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office isn't the first example of this. I mentioned this is sort of the first of a trilogy of dramas that ITV have been pumping out, but there were other dramas in the past that have sparked change, and indeed the BBC article here makes mention of a few of them, so let's have a look at what there is. The first example is in 2017, a 3-part drama series aired on BBC One that was based on true stories of the 2012 Rochdale grooming case, in which 9 men were prosecuted for offences including, well, some of those things I'll just let you read. Told from the viewpoint of the teenage victims, 3 girls helped raise awareness of CA and grooming. As the series aired, the government passed more stringent legislation on grooming, and a new law came into force that would see groomers targeting children through mobile phones and social media face 2 years in prison. I'd argue that's not necessarily long enough, but again, from this drama, it raised awareness, it forced change. And how about It's a Sin, of course, one of Channel 4's highest viewed dramas ever with 6.5 million viewers, a huge figure for Channel 4. That aired in 2021. It followed a group of gay men in London during the 1980s who were impacted by the developing HIV/AIDS crisis. Although fictional, it was based on writer Russell T Davies' experiences as a young gay man growing up during that era. The show changed the public perception of HIV and helped reduce stigma around it. It also led to a surge in HIV testing and an increase in Google searches for how many people died of AIDS in the 1980s. So again, more people were willing to go and get tested. There was less stigma around having HIV generally. More people were taking an interest in that era, what actually happened. That's still a very important social change. The response is far from the first time a docudrama has caught public attention and put politicians under pressure to act. Even as far back as the 60s, Cathy Come Home, Ken Loach's BBC television play about homelessness, sparked a huge public reaction when first broadcast in 1966. As Mark Lawson wrote in The Guardian, the charity's crisis and shelter doubtless benefited from the parliamentary debate and raised awareness of disadvantage that followed the drama. Sturges adds that it allowed audiences to really dwell on what that would be like and to create a space where statistics become people with complex characters and stories. And again, homelessness, you've got to think back in the 60s, I think especially after World War II ended and we had the sort of post-economic boom of the 1950s, I think a lot of people, because, there was no internet, you'd be forgiven thinking, well, it should be all good. We fought this war, we won, at what cost? We sacrificed tons, everything. And yet there's still homelessness in the country in the 60s. And I'm sure, as you know, by the 2020s, that situation hasn't necessarily got better. And some would argue, and depending on where you are in the UK, it's only even gotten worse. But the fact that a drama in the 60s raised what was then a taboo topic, got people talking about it, got it in the public eye. You want another example? How about Jimmy McGovern's Hillsborough, which dramatised the fight for justice by the families of the 97 Liverpool fans killed during the Sheffield Wednesday Stadium crush in 1989. It took the uneasiness and ugliness gleaned from extensive journalism on the topic and turned it into an emotionally charged human story. It centred around the 2 years after the tragedy, when the original inquest recorded a verdict of accidental death in 1991, its airing 5 years later helped solidify a shift in public opinion. So again, back then it may seem mad to think now, but in 91, accidental death? Are you kidding me? And again, it got people talking. It made the movement. It showed millions band together to reopen this topic, to get maybe the rightful outcome that those people deserved. When the verdicts were eventually overturned in 2016 and the deaths ruled unlawful, then Walton MP Steve Rotherham called the docudrama massively influential in pushing for the truth. And I think that's what dramas like this, like Hillsborough, like Mr. Bates, like all of that sort of stuff, they can push for the truth. At their heart, yes, they are still a drama. They are still there to entertain in the broadest sense of the word. But also it's there to educate, to inform, to get a spark lit, to get people talking, discussing. If it needs to make you angry, let it make you angry. If it's going to make you sad, let it make you sad. But it gets people talking. And millions of people talking can instigate change. Just a touch from Toby Jones, who of course played Mr. Bates in the recent drama, had this to say: drama is constantly downgraded as a subject of importance, but it's historically always been a place that people, even if they don't believe that it can deliver change, nevertheless it suggests change, and so it cannot be ignored. In most of the political upheavals in history, not least ancient Greece and revolutionary Russia, that drama has been at the centre of political change, that people have used it to humanise, dramatise and bring forth change, and I couldn't agree with him more. He is absolutely spot on with this, and I think the downgrading, as he puts it, of drama in television, I guess mainly in UK television, I don't know what the situation is around the world. If you are around the world, maybe you can let me know in the comments what the situation with your country's drama output is. But I think in the UK, our drama is considerably important, not just television either, stage, film, but I'd argue TV seems to be the medium where the most millions can congregate and watch it together. Now, a bit on the second of these trilogy of king dramas or king level dramas I'm talking about from ITV. One of them has recently just aired, and that is Breathtaking. Now, this is a story centered around the early days of the pandemic. It's centered around a hospital and obviously the immense pressure and conditions that doctors had to work in those early days. You've got to remember, I mean, I know it was 4 years ago now, which is crazy, but those doctors they weren't given the right equipment. They were arguably understaffed. They were under-equipped, underpaid, absolutely. And this drama is heavy because it proclaims that anything you see in this drama happened in a hospital around the country. And having seen some snippets of it, it's harrowing. It's a tough watch. And again, it makes you angry. It makes you angry that doctors had to deal with this sort of stuff. And again, it goes against everything we were being told, like, regarding PPE shortages, stuff like that. A little bit from The Guardian, they said, as with Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, drama is still capable of illuminating things that public inquiries cannot, and never more so perhaps than in the days running up to yet another set of junior doctor strikes hitting English hospitals from Saturday, Welsh ones from Wednesday, and Northern Irish ones in March. And I think this, and the writer behind this, and, the doctors behind this as well who have inspired this, they're not clamoring just for a rise in pay. It's nothing so much as crude as that. I think if you weren't working in those conditions at the time, we have no idea. We don't know what that experience can be like. And I think a drama like this can maybe help enlighten or remind us or tell people that it was as difficult as it looks, that we should be ever more thankful of them. The fact that, the NHS isn't perfect for one reason or another, I think we all know that. But, to see or hear the level of abuse NHS staff get post-pandemic after everything they did is quite frankly disgusting. As I say, it's recently aired. You can check it out on ITVX and stuff like that. But Breathtaking, again, has had rave reviews. It's punchy. It's current. It's talking about current issues. It's getting people talking. In terms of the ramifications, there might not be anything as far-reaching as was achieved with Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. But again, if it can get people talking and at least help in some regard the doctors, especially those who went through it at the time, then that can only be a good thing. And the final one, this is coming soon. This is again another BBC article claiming ITV follows Post Office drama with contaminated blood scandal series. It's going to follow the Post Office scandal series with a new one about the biggest health scandal in British history. Writer Peter Moffat will tell the story behind the contaminated blood scandal. Now, I must admit, I had not heard of this, and after reading this article, I was quite ashamed that I didn't know about this, because it's something pretty severe. It is thought that about 30,000 people were infected with HIV and hepatitis C through contaminated blood products in the 1970s and 80s. Moffat said victims have been let down by the state, and his show would let their voices be heard. And again, 30,000 people who were infected with HIV and hepatitis C. How have I never heard of this? Why is this not talked about more? It says Moffat was working on the contaminated blood scandal series before Mr. Bates was broadcast, but it has now been fast-tracked following that show's monumental success. More than 3,000 people are thought to have died in what has been described by MPs as the worst treatment disaster in NHS history. So roughly a tenth of the suspected amount of people thought to be infected with this died. And it's not being talked about. The Untitled series will focus on the courage and dignity of victims and their families who have campaigned for truth, justice and accountability against impossible odds. Moffat, who is behind dramas including Silk, Criminal Justice, North Square and Your Honour, said it's been a great privilege to meet those infected and affected and to learn about what they have been through. I'm ashamed to say that when I started researching this story, I knew next to nothing about it. I'm even more ashamed that this ignorance is shared by nearly everyone I mention it to. Same. I mean, again, I'd never, until literally reading this article, I had never, ever heard of this stuff. And again, I'd be curious, maybe if you're an older viewer of mine, you might remember this at the time, but it's not talked about. Really not talked about. The victims of this scandal have been let down again and again by the state. I hope in some small way this drama can help their voices be heard. The head of drama for ITV, Polly Hill, said Peter's scripts are brilliant and do justice to this important story, while bringing it to the screen with real clarity and compassion. So, again, it's been fast-tracked, I guess, in the wake of Mr. Bates. Not just its success from a business standpoint, but I guess also from the reaction it sparked. I do hope the scripts for it have been completed, and when they say fast-track, they mean it's just being aired earlier in the year than planned, and they're not rushing production, because you don't want to rush something like this, absolutely not, especially when it's based off true events. Des Collins, who's the senior partner of Collins Solicitors, which represents 1,500 victims and their families, welcomed the news. The series will expose much of what our clients have endured, not only emotionally and health-wise, but also in terms of shoddy treatment by government in their decades-long battle for justice during which too many lives have unnecessarily been lost. A public inquiry into the contaminated blood scandal heard its final evidence last year. Its chairman, Sir Brian Langstaff, published his final recommendations for a full compensation scheme for those directly affected by the scandal and their relatives. The government has said it accepts the moral case for compensation, and interim payouts of £100,000 each have already been made to about 4,000 victims and some bereaved partners. However, in December, it said it was still not in a position to make a final decision on compensation until it has seen the inquiry's findings in full. The publication of the final report has been delayed until May. This is a constant problem with inquiries, and I'm not just saying it's from a Conservative government. This has happened when Labour's in charge, no matter what party's in charge. Inquiries where the government can be held accountable or responsible, or, responsible at least for paying compensation, they can be delayed, as this one has until May. This can be kicked into the long grass time and time again, and ultimately, sadly, it can be pushed so far back that either the people don't get justice, they pass away, stuff like that. It's disgraceful. I mean, it is good to hear that, 4,000 victims and bereaved partners have received this payout of 100,000 each. At least that's something. Obviously, that's never going to take away the fact that their loved one is gone, wrongfully gone. It's something forward. But I mean, we'll have to wait and see when this final report comes out. But I guess if the drama can come out before May, maybe again, like Mr. Bates, that'll incense people to get talking. It'll incense people to, get some real change happening or get some change done. Or if it airs after the report's been handed in, and if the report isn't exactly, justifiable to those in the eyes of the bereaved, the families, whoever, then maybe this drama again can spark some real talking points and some real change. I've got to say, though, fair play for ITV for tackling this sort of stuff. When it comes to dramas, people can pitch to multiple broadcasters. I remember famously, It's a Sin was only accepted by Channel 4. I believe it was turned down by the BBC and ITV. For what reason? We'll maybe never know. But the fact that ITV are now doing a string of these, and yes, part of it they are doing, I have no doubt. They are a business at the end of the day. They make television. I guess that they're fast-tracking this because Mr. Bates was so successful. Episodes averaging 10 million viewers in this day and age is strong for terrestrial television. I have no doubt that part of this is motivated by the fact these shows are successful at the minute and they just want to make more of them. But I think it's also good that they seem to be really behind telling stories, true stories, that either don't get seldom talked about or need that public boost that drama can give to really put those stories back in the limelight, back in the talking points, and ultimately, and hopefully, for some justice to be done. As I said, this isn't necessarily a new concept. ITV haven't, originated this. This has been going on for as long as television drama's been around, with that 60s example, Kathy Come Home being a prime one there. But I think it just shows that drama, even now, is more important than ever. Even in the world of streaming, even in the world of online TV, YouTube, all that sort of stuff, having a good, solid drama, telling a solid story, and often cases a true story, can be some of the best television around. And it's stuff that we need to watch, it's stuff that we need to respect as an entertainment form, and it's stuff that we need to give platforms to and really push that story out there. Because again, if 10 million people can watch this and learn about this blood scandal that from this I can guarantee you millions of Brits have no idea of, both young and old, that can only be a good thing at the very least. Will it lead to more change like Mr. Bates did for the postmasters? I don't know. But if they carry on like this, we can only hope the answer's yes. But that is all really for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe if you're new as well, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think about ITV's run of dramas? Do you think they are the new kings of drama, as it were? Do you think they're outpacing all the competition? Have you seen these dramas? Do you think they are as important as I'm making them out to be? What do you think other broadcasters could do more to pitch in? What kind of topics should they do for dramas that are like this to really spark conversation and change? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. In the meantime, I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Ethan Carberry-Holt, Bruce Danton, Globe of Reviews, Derek Chambers, Shaun Knock, Daud Khan, Liam De-Maine, Trev Hughes, AJ Mac 200017, Deck KP20, Simon Harrison, and Evan Hart 38, our AMTV staff members.